Welcome to the Chef Joseph's Kick Sauce for Entrepreneurs channel. The Chef Joseph's Kick Sauce for Entrepreneurs channel. On this channel, of course, we discuss the lifestyle of an entrepreneur while running or being in the restaurant business. One of the first things that come to mind with the whole food industry is that it is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the faint of heart. If you don't want to get up early in the morning, if you're not willing to sacrifice, yes, this business is probably not going to be for you. Not to mention dealing with customers, customer service, complaints, false statements, put up about your business. I mean, it's like the list goes on and on and on. You know, but at the end of the day, do I feel like it was worth it? I think, yeah, definitely it was worth it. It's actually worth it. It's definitely a trade-off. You definitely can do very well. You can become very successful in the food industry. It's not really hard to do. You just got to make sure you have the right concept. And yeah, have the right concept. And then not to mention, you have to look at the food you're going to serve. Is it an oversaturated market for the food that you're going to serve? Because you definitely don't want to put out the same type of food product that you may be going to sell at a location and someone else is selling the exact same thing. So from festivals on down to special events, on down to contracting, on down to the restaurant business itself, I've been pretty fortunate to learn and have my hands in all of that. Not to mention, I am a certified chef. Yes, I went to culinary school and got my degree, but I didn't necessarily need that. But I think, would I do it all over again? I'm glad I did do what I did because it definitely brings more. It brings everything in full circle. Knowing that you have the experience and the expertise to be able to put together a standardized recipe. And yeah, and that's what makes people come back. I tell people all the time, especially the ones that I've worked closely with, is like people, they come back for the taste. This is what they come back for. If you deviate from your standardized recipe, then people won't come back. They'll be like, man, you know what I'm saying? The food tastes this way this time. The last time I went, but now, you know what I'm saying? It's like, man, it just tastes a little different. That's because someone changed up the standardized recipe. So that's one thing I would say is that's why you want to keep everything consistent in what you have as far as your products. You definitely want to have it consistent, a consistent flavor profile, and that way customers come back for that repeat taste. No matter how many times you go to McDonald's or wherever you choose to eat, like McDonald's, Burger King, you notice that everything always tastes the same because it is a standardized recipe. So that's just something that you definitely want to consider. I will tell you, being in the restaurant business, or the industry has been a really big challenge. It is very rewarding, but it definitely is, and it can be a challenge because you're not only just running a business, you are basically babysitting employees. You know, I know somebody may say, Chef, babysitting. Yes, babysitting. Because if you're not hiring just people, you are hiring people with their issues and their problems. And, so if you're not careful, then, their story can spill into your life. And that is one thing that I actually have managed to do is to draw a line in the sand. There is like, I don't let people dump anything on me. No problems, no nothing, Don't get me wrong, we're cool. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying? I'm not feeding into that. Because guess what? If you feed into that, if you feed into their stories, and it's not that you don't care, but if you feed into their stories, then when you feed into their stories, what is going to happen is they'll use that story as leverage. They can use that story as leverage. Well, I told you the other day, why I'm not coming to work. You know what I'm saying? Because I told you the other day. But you just listen to the story just in a good faith effort, just trying to listen. But they were basically putting the story down as far as basically to use it as leverage so they don't have to come into work. So that is one thing you have to be mindful of, But at the end of the day, when it comes down to products, when it comes down to picking up products, if it's not the fish, it's the chicken. If it's not the chicken, oh, you got to get trays. If it's not trays, it's tartar sauce. If it's not tartar sauce, it's ketchup. And then if it's not ketchup, then you got to order sodas. If it's not sodas, it's tax time. If it's not tax time, it's scheduling. And I'm telling you, like the list literally goes on and on and on. And you have to be built for it, and you have to prepare for it. That is one thing, because if you're not careful, like I said, you can neglect yourself, take and running after the business to make sure the business is staying afloat. You know, Fortunate for me, I was able to step back, what I'm saying, and just let it do what it do. Yeah, yes, I started a situation, the company, and at the end of the day, I was able to phase back, and just fall back, bottom line. And that way I can take care of myself, my mental health, and everything is still running, what I'm saying, the way it needs to run. But yeah, that's what it's about, building legacy, to pass on to someone else. And that's what it's about. So I was actually very fortunate to be able to step back out of that and just say, okay, it's passed to the next person type of thing. So yeah, so that is basically the day to day of the restaurant business. So um, I actually a lot of times I get calls and stuff about food trucks. I've met tons of people who want to get into the food truck business, and that is another. It seems simple to have something on wheels you can pull up and sell at a market, but you can't just put put a food truck together and then just go somewhere and set up on the side of the road and sell a product. You can't do that, not legally speaking, because like I said, all it takes is one person to call the health department or get sick, and then yeah, there goes the end of that whole situation. So I definitely would encourage anyone that's going to get into that food truck space to make sure that you do your due diligence on basically what you need to do to make sure that your food truck is safe and it is operable. That's something that you definitely want to make sure that you're doing, because yeah, building a food truck is definitely a task within itself. You want to make sure people are safe. You want to make sure that you're safe, because if you're inside of a food truck, what happens if you have a propane leak? Do you know what the smell of propane is? You know what I'm saying? Do you have your testers and things to make sure it's not in the air? Because the last thing you want to do is to be in a situation like that and someone lights a cigarette and boom, what I'm saying, there it goes. So yeah, you want to always be mindful of that, to make sure that your food truck is operating, and it is actually safe to work inside. So that is kind of what we do. We definitely discuss the entrepreneurs um, channel, and we talk about entrepreneurs and stuff like that, and the day-to-day struggles or your journey as an entrepreneur in the food space. But interestingly enough, a lot of you out there have recipes. You have products, you have ideas, of how to basically make a dollar. I do offer this as a consultation service. You can actually go to the website and book me for a consultation, and I can show you A to Z how to lay everything out, your concept, even building your food truck, and what you would need, your regulations and stuff, and it'll save you hours and hours and hours. You know, you can actually go to the Chef Joseph's Kick Sauce.com, chefjosephskicksauce.com, and you can go to the entrepreneurs tab, and you can actually click the link and basically book me for a consultation. Yeah, and we can map out your whole strategy. But yeah, at the end of the day, be encouraged, because, like I said, the food space is big and is actually growing. And there's so much you can actually do with food. Many different ways you can go. I remember when I was in culinary school, I just went specifically because I was making hot sauce, and in the bottle had Chef Joseph on it, and people said, "Well, are you a chef?" And I was like, "Well, nope." And it was, "Oh," and you can kind of see that smile, that thing on their face was like, "Oh, it says Chef Joseph, but you're not really a chef." You can kind of see that, and I seen that for enough. I said, you know what? Maybe I need to expand my horizons. Maybe I need to expand my knowledge base, so I can become more familiar in the area of chefing, of cooking, of preparing foods, things like that. And it has been very rewarding, you know. Um, Literally, I started selling my hot sauce out the trunk of my car. I mean, I was making it, I put it in the trunk, and then I delivered it. That's what happened. I wasn't making it in the trunk of the car, literally. But I, had a commercial kitchen, and I was making my sauces and went to the markets and started selling it legally, that is. And so, and that's what was able to pull me out of my living conditions at that time. Another thing y'all need to know too is that when you do have a dream, when you do have a vision to build something, I need you to know something, and I need you to know something to be very clear. I want to be very clear about what I'm saying. Um, you will go through something, okay? I'm telling you, you must know that, like seriously. So if y'all got, thin skin, if you worried about what people think about you, if you worried about what people will say, it's not gonna go well for you. I've had people that just like clearly that know what I do. Not that I'm all of that, but believe me, I am pretty advanced at what I do. And I don't carry it that way because I'm a very humble person. But at the end of the day, I've seen times I walk clean past people that see me on a daily, that literally look me straight in the face and will not speak. And it's like you walk like this close. Not that anything negative or try to be flirtatious or anything, but just in passing. And it's like, man, and you can see the hate and the jealousy or whatever it is they got going on. You got to be prepared for that because it's not easy. Because if you're not careful, you'll question yourself. Well, is it me? Is it something I did? No, it's nothing you did. A lot of times people have idiosyncrasies they haven't worked out in their own lives. And so, yeah, that is the best way they do. Sometimes they just want to project that onto you. But the key to that is knowing who you are, knowing exactly who you are, and then not letting people dictate to who, dictate, you know, who they think you are onto you, because you need to know who you are. Like I told y'all years ago, when a situation with my own situation, family life, at that time, you know, I had a situation where someone poured negativity into me, seriously, what I'm saying, and and it got off into me. And next thing you know, I was like, my whole self-esteem, I was robbed from all that for years. But I found my way back, and you know what? I can sit back and smile because I am pretty successful at what I do, and and I'm very fortunate. And it did come with trials. That's the next thing. It comes with trials. I did have my series of trials in life, just like some of you will have series of trials in your life. That's part of building business, you know. And I tell people, if the Most High is going to give you something great, don't expect it to be handed to you on a platter. But you're gonna have to do something to work for that. You got to go through the fire just a little bit on that. If you are going to be great, you must suffer. And that's something that a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to go through the fire. They don't want to suffer. Everybody want to go to heaven, but nobody want to die. How's that gonna work? You know what I'm saying? And another thing is you can't go forward looking in the rearview mirror. That's another thing. Whatever's in your past, you got to put it behind you. You know what I'm saying? You got to put it behind you, and you need to move forward and gain strength and find your strength within that situation. Yeah. And the biggest thing is making a mark in the world. Because we all have a certain amount of time here, especially if y'all have recipes and different things like that. You know what I'm saying? They've been passed down to you to do something with it. I'm not saying everybody should be in the food space. Excuse me. I'm not saying everyone should be in the food space, but what I am saying is to those of you, and I've met many whose great grandparents or whoever left them a recipe to do something, and they're just sitting on it. Well, I don't think I want to. It's like, yeah, why did they go through all these things to hand you something that was valuable for you to sit on it? God is not pleased with that. I just want you to know firsthand. You need to know that. And to all y'all believers out there sitting here praying, the answer is right there in your kitchen. If you're called to cook, if you're called to be in that food space, you need to turn it up 10 degrees, man. Make it work. You know what I'm saying? And but I can tell you from the beginning, like I never imagined myself being in a kitchen whatsoever. This was something that yeah, I never thought I'd be in a kitchen doing anything, cooking or whatever. But it actually worked out for the best. And yeah, and not to mention, I was able to provide a job for myself. You know, I was able to provide some source of income for myself because I got up off of my laurels. Not saying that I've had a problem with laziness, but I was able to get up and then, put one foot in front of the other. So definitely, and for those of you who have, um, dreams and aspirations as far as like in the kitchen, you have to make it work. You have to make it work. You know what I'm saying? You know, I will say this. You know, when you look at the subject of entrepreneurship, I look at our churches, and I'm just being real. Like, why are we going to church if the church is not building? I need to y'all to like really think about that. I'm not attacking anyone's religious or belief systems, but when I really look at how far I've come with no bank loans, with no one gives me $10, literally just having to fight my way to the top. What are our ministries doing? Because these sisters can cook too. They can fry, and they cook a lot better than we can, I'm sure. All kind of different recipes. But what are we doing? And that is very disheartening to me. That we should be able to use our talent and build. That's what I've done. You know what I'm saying? And I'm so glad I did. I did not only change my life, I've changed others' lives. That's the next thing. When I really think about it, like I have been a blessing just looking at, and this is not taking any credit, like, patting myself on the back. It's not like that. I'm talking about everyone who's come into my life has had a blessing, and they know it. They've had checks, they've had things that they can take back to their families because why? I sacrificed. I did. And you can't take that away from a person who sacrificed. I heard a saying one time, and I'm trying to get this right, but it was a saying where it was it's talking about you have two dogs and you have one that's on a leash, you know what I'm saying? And he's used to getting fed at times every day, at breakfast, maybe 10 o'clock, then 5 o'clock. You know, he has or that dog or that animal has a scheduled routine. You know what I'm saying? That means he's waiting on that food to be given to him at that particular time. But when you have a dog or a wolf, let's take that up, that has to fight for its prey, that has to go out here and to fend for itself, to find its food. See what I'm saying? When you have that type of mentality, can't nobody take that from you. No one can take that from you whatsoever. And yeah, that's what you've talked to is a wolf, basically. Someone who basically had to go out and fight for and kill for their prey. And that's not in a negative way. That's talking about entrepreneur and business. You know what I'm saying? So yes, people who have to fight their way, they will be looked at different. They will be looked at very differently because, who they think they are to go out here and fight their way to something. And I had to fight my way to success. So pardon the background noise, but anyway. But that's the difference because when you have people that have been given things, they don't appreciate that. But when you have to go out here and fight for yours, and and defeat and defend and fend for yourself, you can't challenge that. You can't take that away from that person. I call it warrior class. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Michi X on that one. But yeah, that's what it was. I had to fight for mine. You know, no banks gave me a loan. You know, I couldn't qualify for loans, all that kind of stuff. So look, I donated plasma to get mine. You know, and I'm so glad that I did. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end result, I was able to get free. See what I'm saying? To a large degree. So anyway, y'all be encouraged with that. Just know the restaurant business is not for the weak and it's not for the faint of heart. You know, and just know that, and my last words is to you, own or be owned. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. And if you got something you want to do on this planet, like Morgan Freeman said in The Shawshank Redemption, either get busy living or get busy dying. It's your choice. It's your choice what you do every day to wake up. You know, everybody wakes up, they have 24 hours in a day to make a difference. Some people choose not to make a difference. Some people choose to make a difference. I chose to make a difference, and it has paid off, you know, and so I encourage you all as well, if it's things that you have to do, your goals, whatever, pick up a goal sheet, write your stuff down, you know what I'm saying? That's what I did. Some people call it a vision board, you know, and you can visualize your way to success, you know, so just keep pushing, man, because, you know, the Most High give us a certain amount of time on this planet, and with that time on the planet, you must use it constructively. That's it, that's all, you know, but again, be that hungry wolf and you hunt for your prey every single day. You know what I'm saying? If you want something, you want to be the best at what you do, yes, you will have to wake up early. You will have to sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? There's no way around it. And also, as you do get to the top, as you start climbing, don't expect to have the same friends that you had. You know, a lot of people will be jealous of you for no reason, you know, just because you're doing something different. You know, I tell y'all, don't let that spirit rub off on you, because you don't know who knows who, and you don't know who that person could be used. That person could be used to be your next blessing. But if you're too busy hating, then how are you going to get that? You know, so anyway, I'm gonna leave y'all with that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the title of this is The Restaurant is a Tough Business. But, you know, but if you're built for it, if you think that the Most High has called you into that arena, hey, dive in. I am open for consultations. You can go to my website, chefjosephskicksauce.com. Go to the entrepreneurs tab, and you can scroll down and book me for a consultation. I even wrote a book about it. It's called the Chef Joseph's Market Ready Guide. It's basically a guide to show you, to put you on the path for product development, you know, where to go, insurance and all that kind of stuff. So that's on the website as well. But anyway, y'all have a good day. I have to get going. I got to actually make some hot sauce today. So yeah, that's what I do. It's called Kick Sauce. So y'all have a good day, and I'll be dropping the next one on y'all tomorrow. I got another subject too coming at you as well. So, but we'll go from there, and y'all stay encouraged. All right, peace out.